Ladies and gentlemen, James Lane here, and I've been hard at work trying to figure something out that's of major importance. What if Joe Biden did steal the election? How could he ever get away with all of these horrifying crimes that he has allegedly contributed either himself or his name to? It's mind-boggling to me that there could be any form of stability after what has happened. And I think we've finally figured it out. Sifting through the news, we came across this article right here on the Daily Wire. Breaking: Trump administration to start transition process to Biden. And then, eureka! It hit me like a 10-ton hammer. With a low dose of estrogen on a weekly basis for a short amount of time, Joe Biden could become the first female president successfully doing what Hillary could never accomplish, basically becoming the Super Saiyan of evil political bureaucracy. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, I kid, but anything's possible in 2020. Nope, I have a completely plausible explanation for why this happened. Not only to calm some folks down and make things seem normal to the undecided folks out there, but there were threats involved, ladies and gentlemen. This lady, the woman who runs this, the GSA Administrator Emily W. Murphy, was threatened. And we're going to get to that. We're going to read that to you. And we're going to talk about the actual legal path that is still taking place. I'm going to give you an update to where we are right now. Stay tuned, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome. I am James Lane. I know that introduction was absolutely ridiculous, but today has been absolutely ridiculous, and yesterday was absolutely ridiculous because everybody is panicking. Abandon ship, we're sinking. Oh no, what are we going to do? Listen, ladies and gentlemen, they already said we're going to have some losses. They already said we're going to have some wins. Some losses are actually wins in disguise. We don't know what's actually going on because we are not going to be privy to certain things. So until the fat lady sings, it is not time for you to be panicking and trying to shovel water out of this ship, or bucket water out of this ship that doesn't exist. All right? We are still in this fight. I'm going to start reading this to you. And I want to get to really why this has happened and where we're going, what we're actually doing, what the media isn't telling you when you turn on Fox News or the Communist News Network, CNN, or MSDNC, or any of the other fake news out there. Newsmax is doing a pretty good job. I'll give them that. OANN too. Listen to this. From the Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro's gig. Breaking: Trump administration to start transition process to Biden. I know I put that really long joke of an intro in there about him transitioning into a woman, but at this point, anything's possible. I could totally see him just kicking, Hillary in the gut, transitioning himself into a lady, and then Miss Joe Biden is the Mrs. Joe Biden and Dr. Jill Biden. I don't know how that would work anyway. It's all BS. I'm just making up a bunch of stuff, shooting smoke out of my ass because I thought it was pretty funny. But let's get down to serious brass tacks, all right? No more jokes, no more fun and games. I'm filming like 3 videos tonight, so I'm being a little silly. And by the way, we're on Audible now. So if you don't have time to watch these and you just want to listen to my sweet, sweet, soothing voice, and imagine what my goatee looks like brushing against the microphone. Yeah, I know that's kind of gross. Then go on Audible. If you don't like Amazon, go on Audible. It's the same thing anyway. Or not Amazon. What am I thinking? Apple Podcasts. If you're not a fan of Apple, if you don't want to watch on Rumble or YouTube, if you just want to listen to this crap like AM radio, go on Audible. And you can find me there, the American Reveille podcast. Just look us up under the podcast. I know these videos fall under our productions, but it is what it is. You'll find it either way. Folks, back to the show. The Trump administration will begin the formal transition process for the incoming administration of Joe of Democrat Joe Biden, according to a letter from the administration. The announcement from General Services Administration, GSA Administrator Emily W. Murphy, comes after House Democrats demanded earlier in the day to be briefed on why the process had not already started. And you know as well as I, they're just trying to seal the deal. Get it done as quick as you can, because the longer they wait, the more this sore festers and the more evidence flows out like an oozing pus. I know that we're having a gross night, apparently. I want to thank, all right, we're going to read this. I want to thank Emily Murphy at GSA for her steadfast dedication and loyalty to our country, President Donald Trump wrote on Twitter. She has been harassed. This is what they're not telling you on CNN and on the other networks out there, on all of the stuff. They're not telling you about this part. They're just giving you that shocking headline when you scroll down your social media. Trump is giving up. He's putting forward the transition team. Screw all that. It's garbage. It's BS. It's hogwash. I've always wanted to say hogwash. She has been harassed, threatened, abused, and I do not want to see this happen to her, her family, or the employees of the GSA. He feels empathy. The president can't watch them suffer anymore as people harass them and scare them and threaten to hurt them and hurt their children, all kinds of things. All right, guys, our case strongly continues. We will keep up the good fight, and I believe we will prevail. Nevertheless, in the best interest of our country, I am recommending that Emily and her team do what needs to be done with regard to the initial protocols, the little tippy-toppy first steps, and I've told my team to do the same. Fight, and I believe we will prevail. All right? Nevertheless, it is in the best interest of our country. Ladies and gentlemen, Trump wrote that, all right? He's not conceding. He's not giving anything up. He's not dropping any lawsuits. All of this crap out there is misinformation, all right? It's an enemy tactic. It's in all of the strategy books. Go read The Art of War. Go grab some of that. Go grab some Robert Greene, the 50... The Art of Strategy, whatever the heck it was called. It's a book from a while ago. I have it somewhere floating around here. I've read it a bunch of times. Guys, it is on there. If you demoralize the people that support the leadership ultimately fails, okay? So you can't get demoralized. It's what they want. That's why when you're looking in your social media and you're looking in your parlor, once in a while you're seeing like a person that doesn't look like a Trump supporter or looks like a fake account or might be a Trump supporter. And they're like, oh, there's no path to victory. Oh, woe is me. It's all over. Those are seeds. Those are planted there. Those are people from other countries half the time. And they're there to spread that doubt, that misinformation. If the will of the people, if the spirit is broken, if we just exhale it out into the universe and we just end it, then what do we have? The leadership has no more, has no more wind under their wings, no more wind in their sails. There's no more cause to fight for because the people are broken. So pick yourself up if you're feeling this way. Stop it. Stop feeling like this. Stop feeling sorry for yourself if you are. Stop losing hope and be strong. Represent this country like the patriotic Americans I know you are. And for my folks out there still hanging tough, solid like a rock, I commend you. All right? People depend on you. They depend on me. They depend on us. And they need you to be solid as a rock. Folks, I want to read you the letter that's actually addressed to Biden. All right. This is what's going to blow the smoke right out of the cloud of the crapstream mainstream media there with their BS story. Once I read this to you, you're really going to see what happens, because this is the letter that Joe Biden will read or has read already. All right. This comes from Murphy. This comes from the GSA chief. All right. As the administrator of the U.S. General Services Administration, I have the ability under the Presidential Transaction Act of 1963 as amended to make certain post-election resources and services available to assist in the event of a presidential transition. All right. I take this role seriously. And because of recent developments involving legal challenges and certifications of election results, I'm transitioning this letter today to make transmitting, this letter today to make those resources and services available to you. Now, this is her to Biden, of course. I've dedicated much of my adult life to public service. All right. And by the way, this is where this is like basically where they're ending when they report anything about this. This is it. This is the whole letter. This is all people are hearing, that they're giving the services to Biden. And then people are going, oh, Trump is giving up. He's not giving up. And neither should you. This is the rest of the letter. This is the stuff you aren't hearing. I have dedicated much of my adult life to public service, and I've always strived to do what's right. Please know that I came to my decision independently based on the law and available facts. I was never directly or indirectly pressured by any executive branch official, including those who work at the White House or GSA, with regard to the substance of timing of my decision. Okay, that means that she acted on her own accord. Nobody was involved in this. They're not pushing her to do this. Nobody's giving up. This was just something that was required to do to calm some folks down, and because she was being pressured somewhere else. And we're going to hear about that. Let's keep reading. To be clear, I did not receive any direction to delay my determination. I did, however, receive threats online. All right. There's real consequences from this, ladies and gentlemen. There's a horde of swarming bees out there that are attacking people and terrifying them. People are getting hurt, ladies and gentlemen. People are dying, ladies and gentlemen. This is no joke. Okay? So she did, however, receive threats online by phone and by mail directed at my safety, my family, my staff, even my pets, in an effort to coerce me into making this determination prematurely. Ladies and gentlemen, if somebody threatened your dog or your cat, look at your dog, your little, your lab, or maybe you have a Chihuahua. I have a Chiweenie, I know. Your German Shepherd. Look at your dog. Look at your cute little kitty cat. And imagine if somebody threatened to kill your pet if you didn't do what they said, if you didn't do what they wanted. Somebody's going to come and shoot, gut, kill, mangle your dog or your cat. All right? Imagine that. I mean, we can imagine our children all day. I don't even want to go down that route. But just imagine your dog, your golden retriever. All right. They're threatening to poison your animals. They hope your pets get killed. I mean, think about that. How mad would you? That just fires me up even talking about it. It just makes me so pissed off. I don't know about you, but there are times where I love my dogs, my pets more than humans. I hate to say that, but sometimes it happens and you just want to be alone, and man's best friend is there for you. And these people on the left are so spineless, so low, such disgusting scoundrels, such credence, some low-life sewer rat Democrat scum, that they'll sink to the level of even threatening your pets. All right? Even in the face of thousands of threats, I always remained committed to upholding the law. That's a woman with strength of character, conviction in her actions and what her core values are. It's important. You can talk a good game. You can say you're about something. You can say you're an honorable person all day long. But when the rubber meets the road, when it comes down to the wire, and you have to depend on your core values, are you going to be true to them? Are you going to stand up and be true to your core, to your beliefs, to your country? Or are you going to bend the knee? That's something you have to know. And this person, she didn't bend the knee. She waited until having to make the determination through no choice of her own. I mean, she made the choice, but the president also didn't want her being threatened anymore. He didn't want that on his conscience. I'm sure that weighed on it as well. And, it's part of this process, okay? But she was threatened. That invalidates it a little bit to me. I don't know about you, but that makes me think that it should just be completely invalidated, all right? Contrary to media reports and insinuations, my decision was not made out of fear or favoritism. Instead, I strongly believe that the statute requires that the GSA administrator ascertain, not impose, the apparent president-elect. So do you see where she's wording it there? She's dancing comfortably around there. Like I told you, I give you my opinion. I believe that it's because of how this whole thing played out. The combination of the president wanting this office conscience, wanting to do the right thing by the people that worked there and somebody he personally appointed, and also her family coming into harm's way. I know that she doesn't say it, but think about it psychologically. Would it be mentioned in this letter if she didn't take that to heart, if that wasn't something that weighed on her conscience? I don't think it would have even been mentioned if it wasn't. So I know what she's saying in here contradicts a little bit of what I'm saying, but I'm reading a little bit deeper into her letter. And some things just aren't so black and white, ladies and gentlemen. Some people have intentions behind and emotions behind what their decisions are. You know, it just is what it is. All right. So she strongly believed the statute required the GSA to ascertain, not impose, the apparent president-elect. And ascertain means to pretty much assess. Unfortunately, the statute provides no procedures or standards for this process. So I looked to precedent from prior elections involving legal challenges and incomplete counts. So that basically means that her decision to time this right now, besides what we talked about, she's basing on past elections as well. So when you look back at past contested elections with legal claims, it was probably right about now when the transition started kind of working with things and she was just going by precedent. So there's multiple factors that play into this. But all I'm really trying to get at by really reading this to you, I know it's kind of getting a little dry. I've gone into it for a good chunk of minutes now, but I really just wanted to drill it into you that this is a person, there's emotions, there's a human behind this person, but it's also a person doing their job and responsible to the Constitution and responsible to the jurisdiction and powers of that job and what they're required to do, which supersedes the president, you know? So I'm not worried about this because, you know, I'll give you the scenario. For me, if all of a sudden the Supreme Court was ruling against Trump, and Trump was firing people in his legal team, like really firing people, not pretend firing people, because the Sidney Powell thing was never related in the first place. If he was doing things like that, I might worry. But I base my decisions on my own strategical analysis, my own belief of where this is going based upon the evidence that I've reviewed. And I review so much stuff. Imagine how much stuff I see with all of the content that we put out here at the American Reveille. So I'm not basing this on what other people are talking about. So I could be wrong, but I don't believe that I'm wrong. And I'm going to tell you something. It's going to sound a little cocky, and I do apologize. It might be a little off-putting, but in my life, I'm usually not wrong. People come to me for the guidance and for the advice. And I'm getting to a point in my life where I just have to kind of accept that. So I'm here to help people and guide people and do the best I can for people. And this is where I truly believe, not just on a hunch, but really on deep study of what is happening, that we are going to prevail. All right. We are on the path to victory. And if you don't believe me, let's talk a little bit about this right here. This is Republicans pursuing 16 post-election challenges in 4 states. All right. This is off the Epic Times. I have a prescription to them, or whatever it's called. I have the premium little plan here, so I can actually read some of this to you since you would have to pay for it. So, you know, Merry Christmas. You get a little bonus from James Lane at the American Reveille. You don't have to pay to hear about some of this premium Epic Times moolah, good old news reporting here, ladies and gentlemen, by Ivan Penchikov. I hope I said that right, Ivan. Ivan Penchikov of the Epic Times. Republicans pursuing 16 post-election challenges in 4 states. Okay, this is where this is heading. This is where we're going towards the Supreme Court, and this is how we're getting there. All right, this is the real stuff, ladies and gentlemen. The re-election campaign President Donald Trump and a handful of Republican groups are litigating more than a dozen active post-election cases in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Georgia, and Nevada as of November 23rd, that's today, with some of the cases already moving up the judicial pyramid where we want them to go, ultimately. The plaintiffs are racing against time with just over 2 weeks left until the safe harbor deadline on December 8th, when the states are supposed to have resolved all disputes and settled the vote counts. months. The legal pathways towards altering the election outcome will narrow significantly after the safe harbor marker, given that the Supreme Court ended one post-election dispute in Florida in 2000 because it wasn't completed by that deadline. And remember, these disputes that are happening now are historic because there have never been so many and so huge of disputes and of lawsuits and litigation coming and pending in these states. This is just tremendous. This is historic. We are living through history. An Arizona judge dismissed the last post-election legal challenge by Republicans in the state last week. The Grand Canyon state's recount law doesn't allow aggrieved parties to request recounts, and I can't get over the fact that I just said aggrieved parties to request recounts, and the campaign fell 0.2 of a percentage point short of the margin needed for an automatic audit. The state's deadline for certifying the election results is November 30th. All right. So 7 days from now. Likewise, Republicans have no election lawsuits pending in Wisconsin, where a recount of the presidential election is ongoing in 2 counties. The Badger State is scheduled to certify its election results December 1st, a day after Arizona, and a recount is also pending in Georgia. And folks, remember, there's more lawsuits coming. There's more litigation coming. We haven't seen the hammer drop on these suits being filed in a few of these key places yet, and we're going to. With 79 electoral votes between them, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, and Nevada will likely decide the outcome of the 2020 presidential election. The Epic Times will not call a winner until members of the House and Senate between January 6 and January 20 count the electoral votes and pick the president. And that's actually a big reason why I respect and really appreciate the Epic Times, because they're not being biased in any direction. They're literally just going with what's happening. Nothing has been certified. Therefore, they are not making a call. I like their stance, and I appreciate their stance. Enough votes are at stake in the lawsuits in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia to alter the outcome of the election, but only if the courts in each state deny former Vice President Joe Biden the victory he unofficially claimed earlier this month. Biden's the projected winner in all 6 states, and Trump has a substantial legal hurdle to clear to defy the projections, even if the recounts in Wisconsin and Georgia reverse the unofficial outcomes. And remember what Trump said just the other week when he said, "Don't ever bet against me." This isn't something that they expect. And this year hasn't been anything we've expected. Ladies and gentlemen, nobody expected what was happening, and the left doesn't expect what's about to happen to them. They just don't. You know, that's really my belief. That's my professional opinion. We're going to keep reading through this just a little bit. We're going to skip over some of this because I want to give you a little more detail about what's happening in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, Nevada, and Georgia. And then we're going to sign this thing off because we are running super long. I know some of you guys don't like the chit chat. Some of you guys really do like the chit chat. So I'm sorry. You'll get some videos that run a little long that I don't edit as much because I know a lot of people appreciate the little talk, the side talk, some of the other stuff. So we'll do some of that. And then you'll also get the 10, 12, 15, 20-minute ones, the short ones for the people that want us straight, sweet, right to the point. So I got to try to give a little bit to everybody that supports what we're doing here. So please bear with me. All right, guys. So in Pennsylvania, the Trump campaign and Republicans have 9 active lawsuits in the Keystone State, more than all the other states combined. The campaign's flagship case in the Commonwealth is Trump versus Bukvar. It was dismissed by a federal judge November 21st. The campaign swiftly appealed to the Third Circuit Court of Appeals. Giuliani said in a statement, the prompt dismissal helped speed along the case to the Supreme Court. That is where they were very thankful about getting dismissed by that crooked judge, because it does bring us closer to the Supreme Court. Days earlier, Republicans asked the Supreme Court to review another lawsuit, Bognet versus Bukvar. The Third Circuit on November 13th sided with the defendants in the case in an opinion that forced the Trump campaign to significantly revise its original complaint in Trump versus Bukvar. And that's where they were saying, oh, they dropped things from the suit. But sometimes you have to alter how something sounds to get the judge to make the right decision. You have to understand it's a whole different world out there that the lawyers are playing in. It's just when you're talking to the judges and doing things through the pathways of the law, there's a way things just have to be worded. It has to be just right to get the outcome that you're looking for. All right. This narrowed the number of votes, the number of counts, from 7 to 2, later acknowledging that only one of the 2 remaining counts was included for the purpose of subsequent appeal. Now, a new lawsuit filed by a Republican lawmaker and several GOP congressional candidates over the weekend, Kelly versus Pennsylvania, seeks to either block the certification of election results or to exclude mail-in ballots from the count. The plaintiffs allege that Pennsylvania's vote-by-mail statute violates the Commonwealth's Constitution, and I've seen things that says it does. It definitely looks like it, especially when you have to accept all of these fraudulent ballots that cannot be verified, and I'm going to call them fraudulent because unless they can be audited and can be verified, they're bogus. They're not legal, so they're fraudulent. All right. There's also a handful of other cases. Republicans are challenging small batches of votes. A judge tossed 113 disputes. But remember, some of these things will get tossed. They said we're going to lose some of these, and a lot of these we need to lose. So it moves up the ladder. All right. It loses in this court, goes to the next court, loses there, goes to the next court. We're trying to get to the final boss in the Mortal Kombat video game from the 1990s. All right. We don't want to fight, Scorpion. We want to fight Shao Kahn or whatever, the big boss guy at the end. All right. Look, I'm a little old. My video game references aren't there. I'm really, really, really betting that my crowd isn't, completely comprised of 18, 19-year-olds. So I appreciate you bearing with my oldness. All right, let's move on to Michigan. Certified, all right, Michigan certified its election result November 23rd, declaring Biden the winner. The Trump campaign and a right-wing group nonetheless have 2 pending lawsuits in the Wolverine state. The campaign lawsuit, Trump vs. Benson, is pending appeal by the Michigan Court of Appeals. The appeal sought an order from the court directing the Michigan Secretary of State to direct local election jurisdictions to allow election challengers to observe the processing and adjudicating of ballots and election challengers to observe video recordings of absent voter ballot drop-off boxes, according to Michigan law. Nothing strange. It is unclear if the appeal will stand, given that Michigan has certified the election results already. Certification by state officials is simply a procedural step. Right there, folks. It's important that you hear some of this. I know it's long-winded, but it's important that you hear it because you have to know the truth. Certification by state officials is simply a procedural step. It's like a little QA. If you work in a production facility somewhere, I've definitely worked in my share of places that produce things. There's quality assurance people that come along, and they have to procedurally make sure that things are according to the plan. Things are according to how they need to be built and produced, and they're done right and properly. And this is one of those, and, unfortunately, we're dealing with people with misinformation, other people that are corrupt, a system that's bogus and bunk. Ladies and gentlemen, certification by state officials is simply a procedural step. We're going to continue combating election fraud around the country as we fight to count all legal votes. Americans must be assured that the final results are fair and legitimate. That's Jenna Ellis, all right? That's the Trump campaign senior legal advisor. You know what a what a hard hitting woman Jenna Ellis is. I was blown away at that press conference the other day. Really, I'm sure you guys were as well. The certification of the results may nonetheless revive another lawsuit, which the Trump campaign dismissed after Republicans on the Board of Canvassers in Wayne County rescinded their votes for the certification of the county's election results. The campaign sought the same result in its lawsuit and filed a voluntary dismissal after the Board of Canvassers members signed affidavits withdrawing their results, or their votes, The statewide certification, which overrides the Wayne County decision, is likely to revive that lawsuit. So remember, they voted after being bullied. You saw my video the other week, or it was like a couple days ago, where, I think his name was Ned, or what was it? Ned Stabler? Yeah, Ned Stabler, that guy. that jackwagon that's down there in just bullying people and screaming about how they're going to burn in hell, basically. Their soul will be very... You saw that crazy video where the guy's going off, history will judge you, your children, your parakeet. These people are absolutely insane. So that plus a bazillion online threats scared the hell out of those people. All right. And they backed down, but then they came back and rescinded their votes. Those votes still moved up. All right. This is another board, another QA on top of that. All right. That's signing off on it to certify the votes. It's only procedural, but technically the first vote doesn't even count. So this doesn't mean anything. All right. So lawsuits are still pending. They're going to come through. Let's look at Nevada. Republicans have 4 active cases in front of the state court in the Silver State. The only federal case, Stokey versus Sagafsky. All right. I hope I said that right, too. Though technically active, has not had a filing for days after a judge rejected a motion for an injunction. Think about it like holding your pieces in a chess game. All right. Give me 2 seconds. I need to drink some water before I, choke out my tongue. Maybe one day I'll learn the trick like Mark Levin or one of those guys where they can just rah, 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 rah for 3 hours and somehow, their mouth doesn't get dry. But, I bet during the little commercial breaks they have, I bet you they're, gulping down water. I bet you. The Trump campaign. All right. We're going to get back on topic. Excuse me. The Trump campaign. Well, actually, let's go up a little. Technically, the case is active. However, all of the relief requested in the complaint can only be granted prior to the completion of vote counting. So Robert Kern, an attorney for the plaintiffs, wrote in an email to the Epic Times. So while the case remains, any chance for it to accomplish anything ended with the denial of their motion for an injunction. The Trump campaign is backing an election contest, Law versus Whitmer, brought by the president's electors against the electors for Biden. The lawsuit alleges widespread voter fraud, including a claim that 15,000 people voted in Nevada also voted in other states, which is crazy. All right. They voted one place, moved because they were fleeing from the ridiculous China virus, and so they moved. And then they got voter, registration there and voted in 2 different places. It's fantabulous. Mail-in voter here, mail-in voter there, mail-in voter everywhere. Where the hell are these freaking ballots even coming from? Where are they going? We never knew. And it was ridiculous. And this is what we get. We get a bazillion little lawsuits from a bunch of different people, then a bunch of huge lawsuits from the Trump campaign. Another one against Dominion, the crazy Hugo Chavez Venezuelan company that Sidney Powell is going to bring to their knees. And that's going to be fantabulous. I hope that turns into the best, largest, craziest, most consequential bust in the history of crime. I want to see corrupt people go down just like you. I really do. And I really believe that's going to happen. The attorney, all right? The attorney for the plaintiffs in a lawsuit brought by Daniel Rodimer, a Republican candidate for office, called on the judge in the case, Gloria Steinem, to recuse because she belongs to a Democratic group with a stated goal of flipping House seats. That's lovely. Steinem declined to recuse and referred the motion to the court's chief judge. Rodimer is challenging the use of ballot processing machines and asked the court to order a new election. That works. Lawsuits brought by 2 other Republican candidates for office are also challenging the use of ballot machines. A hearing is scheduled for November 24th in the case brought by April Becker. Think about this, by the way. If a lot of these other ones win, that could flip more seats in the House. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen. This has just been a nutso year. The news has been wrong about everything. Not that they give a crap because they're entertainment. They're not even the news anymore. But I don't expect the normal result to be what occurs because nothing has been normal about this year. Everything we've expected to go as planned, as normal, deep state normal, never has gone that way, especially this year. So why would it start now? It doesn't make any logical, statistical sense to me. All right. We have a pattern of things being crazy and things aren't done being crazy. So expect the unexpected. Let's get down to Georgia and finish it up there, guys. A lone lawsuit, because we are running pretty long here, 35 minutes or so. A lone lawsuit is still active in Georgia, which wrapped up a risk-limiting audit and certified its election results last week in Wood versus Raffensperger. And I bet you haven't heard any of these cases or any of these names, and feel free to look them up. They're all public. Take a look, because in there lies Trump's path to victory. Guys, Wood versus Raffensperger, an attorney associated with the Trump campaign, sued Georgia's Secretary of State seeking to enjoin the certification of the election results. A federal judge dismissed the motion for an injunction. Wood's original filing included sworn affidavits from people who witnessed the risk-limiting audit and alleged alarming errors and potential fraud. 3 witnesses alleged that Trump votes were counted for Biden. At least 8 others said they witnessed batches of pristine, uncreased ballots folded in order to be placed in a privacy envelope, regardless of whether they were cast in person. Oh, excuse me, I skipped ahead. Excuse me. At least 8 others said they witnessed batches of pristine, uncreased absentee ballots. The condition of the ballots was a red flag. That was the part that I skipped over. And I'm not going to edit that out, by the way. We're just going to leave it in here for funsies, ladies and gentlemen. Red flag, because absentee ballots are folded in order to be placed in a privacy envelope, regardless of whether they're cast in person or by mail. So what they're saying is we have tons of witnesses seeing pristine, perfect, unfolded ballots come in when they're supposed to be folded and put into this, privacy envelope, and there's no privacy envelope. These things, nobody knew if they were in person, by mail, what they were, but they were pristine and they were being brought in. And they were for Biden, ladies and gentlemen. They were for Biden. Republican attorneys have also hinted that the campaign is ready to file a major lawsuit in the Peach State with allegations not yet raised. This is the big mystery litigation, the Kraken, that's supposed to come within the next day or two, probably by Wednesday. I would expect Trump seems to, we'll end this right here, actually, because this is the end of the Georgia part. But don't you notice how Trump seems to like to give like holiday gifts to these people? He went golfing for 2 weeks and then happy Thanksgiving, kaploom. It seems like Trump really, he's that type of person. Our president, we love him. He's an asshole. He's our asshole. And I love President Trump because he has and I'm going to use some vulgar language just like I did. I'm sorry, but he has the balls to stand up to these people, stand up to the deep state, stand up to the left, stand up to critical race theory, stand up to communism, socialism, Marxism, all the isms that are coming to destroy this country. This president stands up against, like we the people who are standing up every day, shoulder to shoulder, to fight this crap. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, guys, we have at our fingertips history. We have magic in the making. We have this absolutely monumentous thing coming, this crescendo that is here. I'm not going to go completely off the deep end. We're not going to talk about it, the American Revolution. We're not going to talk about the conspiracy that's out there. We're going to tiptoe. I'm not going to give you that Tim Pool experience of being a skeptic. I'm a believer. I'm a Trump supporter all the way. I'm a MAGAite. I'm a Republican. I'm right wing 100%. And I know Tim Pool over there is not, I don't know anything about him, so nothing personal. I'm going to give you that from me because that's what I believe in. And I'm one of you. And if you are watching this, you believe in those same values, that same God, country, guns, our individual liberties being respected, not the will of the majority, but the will of the individual to respect the other individual's right to their personal freedoms and vice versa. This country is built on the minority. So why is the left trying to destroy it? What they're doing is misinformation. All right. They're spreading misinformation. They're making people feel discouraged. And it's not a time to be discouraged. It's a time to stand up. It's a time to get together. It's a time to give thanks because it's almost Thanksgiving. All right. And I'll probably do some Thanksgiving stuff on Thanksgiving, but it's almost Thanksgiving. And it's time to give thanks for the beautiful country we have and the beautiful country that we're about to save. ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. I know this one went a little long. I think it was really necessary for you to see all of this data. It's a pain in the butt to read it. Trust me, there was plenty of boo-boos and mistakes that I made throughout this whole thing. I hope I justified it with a little humor and corrected myself a little bit here and there. But you needed to hear this. You need to know this data. You need to know that when people are showing you this picture and going, oh my God, the Trump team is quitting. What's happening? Woe is me. You need to have confidence that the fight isn't over. We're still in this. You've seen Rocky. It ain't over till it's over. All right, ladies and gentlemen, and it ain't over. I thank you so much, and I hope you have an awesome day, and I'll see you in the next video. Please leave your feedback. I really, really appreciate it. Peace out. Ladies and gentlemen, this is President U.S. Grant, Ulysses S. Grant, unconditional surrender grant. And I propose we get rid of the Grammys, we get rid of the Emmys, and we start the Granties. And the Granties would be given to extraordinary Americans who worked their butt off and came from dregs and came from hardship and failed and learned hard lessons and still overcame their utter animalistic humanity and rose to great heights to do great things for this country. But I digress, because I'm not here to talk to you about the Granties. I'm here to talk to you about coming to Parler from whatever social media you're on. And if you're already on Parler and you're seeing this, that's great too. But I want you to go to our Parler page here for the American Reveille. It's at The James Lane. The James Lane, Lane. The American Reveille. I am James Lane. I'm a veteran. I'm the owner and operator of the American Reveille. And all you got to do is come to Parler, sign up, and follow me. You'll see a little follow thing here. Here, look, we can go to Megyn Kelly's. You see how it says follow right there? You want to follow me on Parler, if this thing will ever go backwards. There we go. And be one of the 7,500 people that love the American Reveille. We are patriotic. We are in your face. We are here for you, for the right. We the people, for the people. And we are fighting the good fight as digital soldiers against the left. The more people that join our cause, the more we can spread the message and we can beat down this evil leftist ideology. And if you're not watching this on YouTube, you're probably watching this on Rumble. And folks, Rumble is going to take down YouTube. It is the rising platform for uncensored voices, including many of your favorite conservative voices, including me, James Lane, here at the American Reveille. So when you're watching this and you're on Rumble, you're going to see right over here this little subscribe button. I need you to hit that button and subscribe to the American Reveille on Rumble. I need you to share this. I need to get the word out, because we are a community and we are right. We are righteous. We are on the right path to victory. The left does not stand a chance, and we will prevail.